Tom's in Nashua, New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live, Tom.
Yeah, it's about the Foreign Accounts Tax Compliance Act, or
Well, that sounds
FATCA.
exciting.
That's
Sounds like a real page-turner.
A federal law that says that banks all over the world have to tell the IRS how much money U.S. citizens have. Or
That's
anybody,
right.
Because anybody who was born in the United States, or if they have like one parent who was born in the United States, even if they were born in another country, they are considered by the U.S. government to be a U.S. citizen. And by the way, I trying to bring up to a member of the Canadian Parliament who's very much against complying with this law, a loophole that I found in my passport. It says that if you accept a job with a foreign government, then under certain circumstances, you can lose your U.S. citizenship. This paragraph, this note in my U.S. passport warning people that, if you do that, you can wind up losing your U.S. citizenship. And I'm trying to tell that member of the Canadian Parliament, by the way, if you offer somebody in your riding, because that's what they call MP districts in Canada, they're called ridings, if you offer them a job. Let's say you've got a bloke in your constituency office who's going to be out on holiday next week, Well, then they go have somebody fill in just for one day to answer the phones, And, they don't have to go to Ottawa to do it. They've got an office right in their riding, so it's just a few kilometers down the road, So anyway, they
He's trying to talk like a
day.
Canadian. Daryl's looking funny at me here. He's adding in the word a.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out why he's trying to talk like a Canadian.
I think it's supposed to be
anyway,
funny.
if you put them to work answering the phones for one day.
So what you're saying is then they will the feds will revoke their citizenship, and so therefore if the citizenship is revoked, then the FACTA, this thing you're talking about where the banks of the world do not have to report that person to the IRS?
That's right, because they've thereby renounced their citizenship without having to go through all the trouble and
renunciation. That's an interesting point because
we were
it's
just talking about that last week.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that where the feds have increased by 440%, I think it was, the fee that you have to pay in order to just apply to remove your citizenship. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, and what I'm bringing up here is they don't admit they ever were a U.S. citizen. They simply take a job working for one day.
So I get what Tom's saying there. He's saying it was sort of a long reach about back to the last discussion we had about the renouncing one's citizenship. So in order to renounce citizenship, you have to acknowledge you were a citizen in the first place, which, of course, as I pointed out last week, nobody's actually a citizen because the government, at least in this country, in the U.S., has no obligation to protect you, and a citizen is someone...
Unless you go to a different country and you're like, well, I'm just going to get a job working for some other country's government so I can avoid all that stuff.
So you would be, in theory, able to avoid having to go through the process of renouncing your citizenship, which, of course, if you are like me and you don't believe citizenship exists, that would be a way to do it. Of course, then you'd have to hold your nose and actually work for the government in order to do that.
But you wouldn't have to admit anything about citizenship, really. It would just happen automatically.
Well, that's what he was saying.
He said in some cases it can be.
It can be automatic? What can be?
The the automatic revocation can be. So it's not a guarantee.
I see.
And I could see one of these things of if a large number of Americans started getting jobs for foreign governments for even a day and then saying, I'm no longer an American citizen.
Well,
and then the feds would be like, no, it's not automatic. You still got to do X, Y, and Z.
Odds are good. Large numbers of Americans are never going to do that. Odds are good. Fairly small numbers will probably not go through those hassles. So.
Right, but if the people that are trying to expatriate anyway, and we know that number is going up.
Oh yeah.
Then if those people then find out, I can go this other route and not have to go the original way. That's what I meant by an increase. Was
a noticeable increase.
The number of people, what is it, like 1,300 people in the last several years that have renounced their citizenship.
Ooh,
so
is that all?
It's not a huge number.
Huh.
But it's still...
It's higher than average?
It's definitely on the end.
Right. The
So,
number
on
keeps
average-
going up
So
every
on
year.
average, what, like 5 years ago, it was only a few hundred every single year?
I think so.
That's kind of
Seems
shocking
small,
to me.
huh?
Yeah. I mean, for all the people that are immigrating here, I'd imagine, at least half that number are, emigrating.
They don't make it easy to leave. Again, this isn't just people who are emigrating, right? This is people who are renouncing citizenship.
Right. Expatriating completely.
So going
and-
all the way. And talking about sort of the money world here with Bitcoin, this amazing decentralized currency that's taking the world by storm. And, of course, there's all kinds of stuff happening in the Bitcoin universe. It's very exciting to focus on that. And liberty-minded people are, in a lot of ways, very interested in this because Bitcoin can provide folks with some level of financial independence. For instance, if you are going to go over to another country and live, it's nice to have Bitcoin, especially as Bitcoin becomes more accepted, because then you don't have to transfer money from one form to another, and you can avoid, hopefully, if Bitcoin continues on, you could hopefully avoid even having to open a bank account in another country, because that's what the feds are using to target people from the United States. They're using the banks of the world to send them information, and I don't understand how this works. I don't get how the federal government can write some kind of law and have the world's banks respond to it.
Well, do you remember there was the thing a couple of years ago where the U.S. government was threatening the Swiss banks? Because the Swiss banks, they don't necessarily tie a name to the account. They tie a number to the account.
Right, and it's more anonymous. But isn't the U.S. Federal Reserve note, isn't that the global currency?
It's fairly well accepted around the globe, but
so they have a lot of sway when it comes to dealing with other banks.
But what do they do? I mean, how do they push themselves onto these banks? I mean, what they
I just
can't
imagine
regulate
it's
them.
some sort of political pressure, like maybe there's some sort of
Are they
awkward
pressuring
conversation.
the
They're
Swedish
pressuring
government?
they're pressuring the governments.
And then they're pressuring
And then the
world
governments are pressuring the banks.
see.
In a lot of places, those banks are controlled by a government.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.